woman came in. She started talking about her and her husband. How we're going to kill all the men.
And Kate, we've never had any author asked to stand up so the audience could see them. Never. This is the first time anybody's ever wanted to look at an author.
Well, thank you, Fiona. However, it may mean you've always had extraordinarily tall authors before. Okay. Anyway, here I am. I'll come down the aisle if you want.
Okay, well, I think we've started, but let's do the official bit. Firstly, welcome everybody. My name is Fiona. I co-own Avid Read and Where the Wild Things Are. And it's a great pleasure to have Kate Langbroek here to talk about her wonderful book, Ciao Bella. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Yagara and Turrbal, and pay all of our respects to elders present, past and emerging. And also a big shout out and welcome to our Zoom audience, because we've got lots of people on Zoom joining us, and to acknowledge the traditional owners of where everybody is zooming in from. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Now's a chance. Sorry. Excuse me, to turn your phones to silent.
Yes. I think I have.
Behind the counter.
Imagine that. Oh, you know what the rule is? If anybody's phone goes off, you have to hand the phone over. And we get to see, and if you get a message ping, I will read out the message. That could be a fun game. The audience really Fiona will be like, why did you say that? Everyone's getting messages.
Where am I? Oh, okay, housekeeping. But also do feel free to engage in much social media. Kate is on Twitter and on Instagram at Kate Langbroek. So let everybody know that you're here and you're having a good time. Toilets are behind the counter, up the stairs along the corridor. We're going to leave time for questions at the end, and there'll be a signing as well. We're going to pop Kate over there, and she's going to be only too happy to sign copies of people's books. I was saying last week, Mother's Day is coming, and people should get signed copies for Mother's Day. Belated Mother's Day gift. Christmas is coming. Signed copies make great.
Something is always coming.
Something's always coming. Father's Day. Father's Day.
Yeah. Father's Day. A few men have started. Women, I think, have given their. Isn't it strange that a travel book like that would be perceived to be a woman's book?
Yeah,
but it is. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of knew when I was writing it, even though I was kind of writing it for myself, I knew that it was a book that I would like to read. Yeah. I love books like that. Whereas my husband is always like, another book about Hitler. You know, men love Hitler. They love the war. They love, it's like, they just love it. No, women love true crime. Why? I don't love it. I'm just like, everyone's like, the world's so violent. Hang on, darling. I'm just going to read this story about this woman who got murdered and raped before she was thrown in the river. No. And we're like, well, why? Like, why do we feed ourselves with it? I don't understand it. Anyway.
Well, your book is quite different because it is aspirational in so many ways.
That was a test to see if the owner had read it. So I was devastated by what happened to that woman.
So do I have to introduce Kate? I think, do we all know who Kate is? Yes. But she is one of Australia's most beloved media personalities. Her ferocious wit, playfulness and irreverence has made her an audience favourite in a career that has spanned prime television, top-rating breakfast and drive time radio, acting, script writing and journalism. She broadcasts nationally every day on doing 3 p.m. pickup and is a regular guest on Channel 10's The Project. Please welcome Kate Langbroek.
Hello, everybody. And I'm just taking a moment to enjoy being in a room with people. Yeah. Oh, I don't believe any of you will kill me with your virulent whatever. I've already had it. So I was an early adopter of it. In fact, when my book came out last year. So,
there's a whole lot of authors in 2020 and 2021 who have really been impacted by their books coming out in COVID.
Yes.
Other authors seem to have been incredibly productive with COVID, where they've written multiple books and they've gone on and done a huge amount of writing. What was COVID like for you in your writing here when you were in Australia?
Well, we came back from lockdown in Italy. So we went into lockdown in 2020, the year that we thought was going to be our bonus easy year. After we thought 2019 was the difficult year when we first arrived because we had to find schools and basketball teams and didn't speak any of the language. And then 2020 happened and we realised, like so many of us, what we've been complaining about, all the things we complained about. God, I missed peak hour traffic. Do you know what I mean? Like it reset everyone. Anyway, so we went into the world's first lockdown after China. And no one had done it before. It was a girlfriend here said to me, "You're like a prophet from 2 weeks in the future," because we were just like, then it started rolling, you know. But then we came out of lockdown in Italian summer. So we came out May, they started to ease us out, and June was summer, and we went to Puglia down south, and it was like it had never happened. No one was wearing masks. We were jumping off rocks and eating in restaurants, and everyone was out and about. But the first time around, the South had not copped it in Italy. And I was saying to my husband, "We have slayed the dragon. They will not put me in lockdown again." And Peter was like, "Oh, I think when autumn comes, I don't." And I was like, "Shut up." And then, of course, by the time we left, we were in lockdown again and just came out, in fact, for 3 days because the Italian government is erratic. And for some reason, they declared, we can come out of lockdown just so we can go to a restaurant and have a lunch. So we all did. We had 3 fabulous lunches. Like, that's so Italian. It's just so Italian. They were like, this is too much. So, and then, of course, we came back to Australia and everyone was like, "Oh, you must be glad you're back in Australia, land of freedom." I went to Victoria. So yeah, and it was very interesting. I was finishing off my book, most of which I had written in Italy, and but when we were in hotel quarantine, I wrote the last chapter, and I cried and cried. It might also have been because I was with 6 people in a 2-bedroom hotel room for 2 weeks with windows that didn't open. But whatever, I wept a lot.
So let's go back to the beginning. You first visited Italy in 2015 and you were swept away by it. What was it about that first trip that triggered the interest in going back?
Well, hither to that, I had never really travelled in Europe, other than when I was little with my dad. My dad's Dutch, and we'd been to Holland a few times. But as an adult, all my travelling had been in Asia, really. I'd been right through Asia. I'd been to America. I was much more America-centric than I was Eurocentric. And so we went because my mother-in-law, so my elder son, Lewis, when he was in grade 6, this is one of the reasons I'm just such an advocate for public education. My kids will go to state schools. And the teacher, the deputy principal at my kids' primary school was retiring, and she had, over the course of her career, made friends with a sister school in Italy. And she said, as my gift to the school, I would like to organise a trip to Italy for 2 weeks for these state school kids, right? Right, amazing. Anyway, so I had that the previous year off work. By the time the trip came around, I was returning to work, and one night I was tucking Lewis in and he was kind of a bit sad, and I went, "Well, aren't you looking forward to this trip?" And he said, "No." And I asked why not, and he said, because he'd had childhood leukemia, not that we ever really talked about it when life had moved on. He said, "What if I get sick over there?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So we asked Nana Ree, Peter's mother, Marie, called Nana Ree. And I said, "Would you like to go to Italy?" And she was like, "Would I?" Anyway, so that was, then this strange thing happened because my mother-in-law is she's an avid reader, by the way. You've named your bookshop after her. She ended up going, she said, do you mind if we stay a bit longer? I said, I was going to suggest that. That's a long way to go for 2 weeks. And then Peter said to me one night, do you know how long Mum's staying with Lewis in Italy? And I was like, no. He said, 3 months.
I like Nana's attitude. That's great. Go Nana.
Literally like, what? I said, we have to go get that boy back from that old lady. Like, it's either us or Interpol. And so we rounded up the other kids and we went over to Italy. And we only went to Italy because of that trip and to meet Lewis and Maria, who by that stage were living in a little apartment in Vicenza, and they were picking cherries wandering down lanes. And
Nana's
it was
running a
amazing.
bistro.
Yeah, Lewis learned really to cook there.
Oh, wonderful.
And then from the moment we arrived, we were just like, this place is amazing. And a lot of the world is amazing, but there's a spiritual component. And by that, I mean, it connects with your spirit. And it's a very nourishing place. And it's a place where time seems to move differently and people make it move differently. It's like instead of time running things, they run time. So it's like you make time for what you want to do. And even in that first holiday, we got such a sense of it. I remember we were sitting by a pool and Peter said, oh, you can totally understand why people do that spend a year in Italy thing. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he goes, oh, well, maybe when we retire. And that was really the start of our conversation. And then it led to, why do we have to wait till we retire? Which is a stupid question, really. I mean,
but you did have 4 children.
It did, yes. Yeah. We had 4 and we still do.
Yeah, still do. You didn't leave any of them there.
No, I didn't leave any of them there. Although my son, who bitched and moaned quite a lot of the time, my eldest son, because he had a secret girlfriend back in Australia by the time we left. The window of doing this with children, I've learned, we probably was closing on us, particularly with him. He was 15 when we left. And, they're old enough that they have their own, even though everyone knew that we were doing it in our family. For 2 years, we talked about it.
But you could have made it easier. You could have gone to somewhere like Thailand or Hawaii or a city like New York or even Holland, where your father is from. What was there a moment that you went, we have to do it?
Oh, that's a good question. Neither of us can recall a critical defining moment other than a conversation I had with Peter where he said, oh, you won't give up your job. And because people don't give up jobs like I have on it, like they just don't. And I was like, you know what? I would. I will. And I did. But I think it was, we spent so long, will we, won't we? Like it's a massive, massive. At one stage, I said to Peter, when we were embroiled in some scenario with the consul to try and get, visas and blah, blah, and there is no visa for you. There's this one, you have a family with children who go to school, but this visa does not apply to you. This is for retired people, blah, blah, blah. It was all like that. And Peter was doing the bulk of all of that. And I said to him at one stage, well, it must be possible because people do this all the time. And Peter, I remember he was washing up. Washing up. Yeah, do you know, I'll explain that to you later. Anyway, and he said, after a moment, he's very quiet and thoughtful. And he goes, darling, can you just tell me some of the people who have done it? And when he asked me that, and I blame you. Oh, I blame bookshops.
I know.
Because I somehow thought, because there's all this chateau in blah, blah. Yeah. I thought people did it. And I realised people don't do it. And now I know why people don't do it. But I'm glad I did it.
So you mentioned that you'd started writing the book beforehand.
Yes.
Did you know you were going to write a book when you were there? Did you keep a diary?
No, I didn't know I was going to write a book. And in fact, I had been approached in the past because I've written columns and I've done a lot of writing in my adult life, but never a book. And I didn't think I was going to write a book, but I knew from the moment we started that what we were doing was really significant, which you don't always know in life. Do you know what I mean? Like, often you'll see it in retrospect, but at the time I knew that it was incredible. And I didn't keep I made notes of some things, but mainly, you know, now my diary, like everybody, is the phone and the photos. So when I was writing, if I had a period that I wanted to remember, I could just flick through and saw the photos. It was incredible. So I thought that was my brother at the back, but he's my sister-in-law. Oh, no, it's not. Is John Paul and Stace here? No, they're coming tomorrow. Okay, just checking. Just checking what I can say. There's an election coming.
So what was the writing process like? You've said you have written and you do enjoy writing.
Oh, no, I don't enjoy writing.
Oh,
no, I don't enjoy writing. Oh, no.
So it was hard.
It's solitary for me. All my work is collaborative. Like all my work kind of has been in comedy or radio or whatever. I like that nature of engaging with someone else. And Hughes always used to say to me, you're a stand-up comedian, you're just too lazy, you're a sit-down comedian, right? And then he tried to explain to me that stand-up, which another writer also said to me of writing, is collaborative, but you're collaborating with yourself, or I don't know. Anyway, I started in lockdown because I thought, if I can't do this in lockdown, when will I ever do it? And at the end of 2019, I had spoken to Fiona Henderson from Simon Schuster, and she had, by coincidence, that's probably not a coincidence, but she'd edited up 2 other travel books. That's her job. She's an editor. She had edited 2 travel books that I'd really loved, and one was Holy Cow. Yes. And what's the other one I'm going to say?
So I remember Holy Cow, but I can't remember. There's another famous one.
Australian one. Is it Simply French? Nearly French? Simply French?
Yes.
Almost French. Almost French. Thank you. And there's a story in that I had always said to my children since we've got shorthand in our family where we just go, if someone's going out and they look, you know, below par, so they're a bit dishevelled, I always say to them, it's not nice for the baker, which is a story she tells in that book. When she hooked up with her French boyfriend, one day they were going on the weekend, going to the bakery to get croissants, and they were living in Paris, and she's an Aussie girl, and she put on her tracksuit pants, and he said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm just getting dressed to go to the bakery. And he said, but what are you wearing? And she said, my tracksuit pants. Why? What's wrong with that? And he thought, and he said, it's not nice for the baker. So how brilliant is that? Brilliant. So I say to my children all the time, it's not nice for the baker. Anyway, we're absolutely brilliant, isn't it? I remember very little of things I've read, but that's always kind of stayed with me because it was so perfect. And the Italians are also like that. The Italians are also very nice to the baker.
So if there was one experience that could be relived from the book, what was that? What would you do?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't know. It's just so, it would be, which one?
Venice.
Oh, Venice. Oh, yeah, Venice. Oh, yeah,
so
Venice.
we're getting suggestions from the audience as to...
So in, just before lockdown, we were in Venice for Carnivale,
yes,
which is medieval Halloween. Everyone dresses up, and my husband and I were having a weekend together. The first time we'd been alone together for months because we'd been back in Australia. The bushfires had happened. It was just, everything was just so hard here. It was really It was such a testing time for everyone. And then when we went back, even at our school, they did a bake sale for the Australian animals. They were so beautiful. Anyway, so Peter one day, who is prone to like beautiful surprises like that, not the I'm having an affair kind of surprise. I don't know how you roll. I don't consider that beautiful. Anyway, he said, I think we should go to Venice to the Carnivale. And I'm like, what? Okay, well, no. And then we picked the ball we were going to, whatever. And we had the most magnificent weekend. Came back from the ball. He got so riotously un-Italianly drunk. Aussie drunk. He was Aussie drunk, which you just never see over there. And we often had to explain it to friends of ours over there. Like, seriously, one night we were in, I was in Florence and Peter was in Turin, and we were both at basketball tournaments. I was with Jannie, our little one, and he was with Art, number 3. And he sent me a message on the Friday night going, I can't believe there's 10 people here. And one of the guys was on a Italian reality TV show, very handsome, what a rotter. Anyway, he went, there's 10 of us and there's 2 people having beers. And I sent him a message the next night and I said, there's 12 of us here and there's no one having beers and no one has ordered any wine. Unheard of in Australia. Not wowzers, just un-Australian. Yeah, un-Australian. The Italians are un-Australian. What was I? What was
right. And maybe we should leave it for the audience to read about Lady Kate and Lord Peter.
Oh, that thing. Anyway, that was when we went to lockdown, by the way.
We walked and walked.
Yes, we walked and walked. Oh, I was so angry at him. Oh, mate, and you tried. I had to do a wee. I was wearing a skirt with a bustle on it and high heels, and it was winter on cobblestones. I was really annoyed. And then the next day, I woke up. He was all sheepish. And then he picked up his phone and he went, oh, fuck. And I said, what? And he said, they're shutting down Venice. I'm like, what? That's a concept. You know what? Anyway, that was the start. And we were in Venice and our children were in Bologna, which is like an hour and a half away on a train.
And just in terms of food, because food does play a central part of the book, can you pick one meal or one dish one occasion?
I can. And Peter and I speak of it often. And it's the first time we went to this little seaside restaurant in winter in this seaside town that was closed, a concept we don't have. But in winter, they shut up the seaside towns, of course, because it's snowing. And our mate Giovanni, who my girlfriend Sasha had an assignation with, who became like one of our best friends, took us to, Giovanni hardly speaks, but this is Giovanni. There is a restaurant that we have to go to. You want? We're always like, yeah, we want. And then when he would eat, he always says this other thing that we always go to, which he would go, now I am happy. And that was, anyway, he took us to this seaside restaurant, which was kind of a mafioso restaurant, which I would never say initially because they don't take kindly to that, but it's very unspoken. They hate that Westerners always come to Italy to write books about the mafia. They hate that. Anyway, it was fantastic, and there were all these guys, so many men having lunch together in Italy. Just men, wall-to-wall men that you would think it's just like Mardi Gras every day, but they'll also eye you up, you know, and made a bit of an effort. If you've been nice to the baker, they'll think anyway, we had, he said, do you like seafood? And we said, yeah, we love seafood. And the dishes came out of the kitchen. He was friends with the owner, and every single dish was raw seafood. Every single thing. Now, we've eaten, you know, we have sashimi or whatever. This was a whole fish, a snapper, I think, cross-hatched. Everything was raw. Every single thing you can imagine was raw. every kind of fish, every sea urchins and blah, blah. It was the most spectacular meal. At first we were like, oh my God. And then it just became, it was heaven. It was magical. It was heaven.
My mouth is watering.
Just with olive oil and salt and so beautiful. And also it's like them showing off, look how fresh.
We don't even
Yeah, you know, our pesce is so fresh. You don't need to cook. I'm like, fantastic.
So there are wonderful moments and there are challenging moments. It does involve you're working there. Hughesy comes, but I think we might leave that for the readers.
All right.
But aside from having Hughesy come, what was the biggest challenge that you faced?
That was a challenge. I've got a video of him when I picked him up from the airport, me driving. And by that stage, Sasha went, you are such an Italian, because I was just at the airport, you know. Anyway, he couldn't bear it. He can't bear to be out of control anyway, Hughesy. So me at the wheel of a van, driving on the wrong side of the road. Yeah, it was a lot. Anyway, what did you ask me?
What was the biggest challenge apart from Hughesy?
Oh, for me, language, because I'm used to whatever mental elves aren't slumbering, will open a drawer and there'll be so many words in there, you know, like thing, and then they'll kick a pile of words and they'll pluck one out and it'll be, you know, adorable or magnificent. See, there's lots in there. Or adequate. And in Italy, of course, I didn't have that, and we didn't speak the language. But that also became, I mean, I don't want to get to, you know, hashtag grateful, but the things that were a big test also became a benefit, because I couldn't rely on my normal verbiage. Lisa, oh, hello. I had to show myself in different ways, which was very unusual. I couldn't really use words, and without words, you kind of, I use my hands, not always in a nice way. But I kind of had to enter. I remember talking to Nigella Lawson about this, who fell in love with Italy when she was like 18, and she said before that she was just so notoriously shy, and she doesn't think she would have had the life she'd had, because with the Italians, you can't really be shy. You have to enter into the fray. And how do you do that without words? I'm miming, la la, I'm dancing, I'm laughing, you know, it was. And then as I learnt key words, I would use them to punctuate, you know, my mimes. But it was a very interesting thing for me. Before we went, I said to Peter, and I were having a conversation about it, of course. And how long?
No, we're just.
Oh, what's your secret sign language?
I forgot to bring my phone over, so no, I just.
I don't know either. I don't know time either.
No, we're right.
Okay, all right. I'll just
Eleanor. You don't need to clock when you're
Eleanor. Oh, but I wouldn't disobey her. Very authoritative hand signals. She's got her own gestures down. Peter and I had been to a restaurant for one of the kids' birthdays, and we'd left it, the booking, this was in Australia, too late. And then Sasha, our producer, called up and said, oh, it's for Kate Langbroek. And they went, oh, well, we'd love to, blah, blah, blah. And I said to Peter, that's a terrible card to pull, but handy to have if you need to do a birthday dinner and you can't. And I said to Peter, we won't be doing that sort of stuff in Italy, because in Italy, the only people who ever called out my name were the people that I knew, which was probably in total by the end 200 people in the whole town. And Peter said, and I said, oh, that will be really interesting for me to not, and not that I'm someone who particularly trades off that anyway, but just to have that different relationship with myself and with people that I meet. They don't know anything about me, whereas some people in Australia would know maybe something about me, or a lot, or, you know, hate me, whatever. And Peter said to me, oh, my darling, he said, I think amazing people are amazing no matter where they go. And I thought about that all the time when we were in Italy, because we made such a beautiful life with just ourselves as ourselves. It was really lovely. My beautiful drunken husband. And it's kind of true that the more you let your light shine, and the more you divest yourself of, in my case, words. They were obviously holding me back. I don't know why I wrote a book. But the more you divest yourself of the accoutrements that you think you need, the kind of freer and more true to yourself you become.
There's a Buddhist expression, you take yourself wherever you go.
Oh, yes.
And you took
Yes,
it
was great. I was quite good company.
What was the lasting impact on your family? Because it was your dream and Peter's dream, and the kids got to go along. But what's been the lasting impact?
Well, I had mentioned that Lewis was reluctant, but Lewis, who's doing grade 12 now, he got put back when we came back because of the half-year difference in the school year. He's going to Italy at the end of this year to see his friends.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Is that nice, or is that really fucking annoying? It's both. And it's a mother. Oh, that's lovely, dear. Come and wave a tea towel at you as you fly off. You know. Anyway, sorry, that was my inner self talking. But it was quite incredible because he was so resistant. You know, he was like when you see someone walking a fat dog around the park and they're just like, Lewis was like that inexplicably to us when we were there. Because I'm like, who can not love this? This is partly your fault, mate. If you hadn't had leukemia, we wouldn't be here. Oh, poor Lewis. Anyway. And then Sunday also has made friends, really close friends in Italy. And one of her best girlfriends, Beatrice, is at boarding school in England. Oh, my God, has she had culture shock? Oh, yeah.
The food, surely
just the food. The food and just the English girls and, you know, is my twat covered? We're going out for a drink. And you're like, yes. Oh, that's a mistake. I better uncover it. Sorry, Lisa. Lisa's English. She'll demonstrate that kind of English gal for us later on. So, and the little boys who played basketball, because my husband tricked me, they speak fluent Italian. Because they played with Italians, and if they didn't say, give me the ball, no one could give them the ball. And so we stay in touch. We stay in touch with all those friends. I mean, it's difficile because we have, you know, the time difference here is hard. And that the time difference was, in fact, one of the things that was quite liberating over there, because you really couldn't stay connected here. So it wasn't like you could have a foot in both camps.
Now, before we go to questions, so get them ready, audience. My last question to you, Kate, is, would you do it again?
Where's the plane? I would do it in a heartbeat. Although when people say to me, but when people ask about whether or not I think it's a good idea for them to do, I do say to them, it's not necessary to go there for 2 years or even a year. And I only say that because so much of it is mired in paperwork and, you know, bureaucracy. But if you took a term, if you took 3 months in Italy, 3 months in Italy is 10 years somewhere else. It's just, it is the greatest thing that we've ever done and the greatest gift we've given to ourselves. And the other thing that was really interesting about it, which I will say because it's a room full of women primarily and the men that we're going to slaughter later and make a beautiful ragu. You're not fatty enough. Anyway, it was really good for my relationship with Peter, which has always been quite good anyway, because I had to rely on him. Oh, he loved it. Oh my God, he loved it. That's all. Isn't that funny?
That's probably all we need to know about that.
Well, no, because we're so, we're so modern and we're so capable and and not only we're modern and capable, but I know a lot of women who do 90% of the lifting. And it was just, it was really good. It was great. Now we're back in Australia. I don't need him. Fuck him.
On that note,
That's not nice for the baker, is it? I also realised how much I swear, and I'm trying not to. When we went to Italy, the Italians swear a lot, by the way. They're massive swearing bears, but it sounds nice in Italian.
Now, do we have questions from the audience? Got a question here and then down there. So question here first.
Okay, my name is also Fiona.
Oh, hello,
Why
Fiona.
did you choose Bologna, and did you have a favourite cocktail?
Okay, so the question was, why did you choose Bologna and did you have a favourite cocktail bar?
We chose Bologna. We had it narrowed down to 3 places. Florence, too busy and too touristy. Verona, too rude. And Bologna, just right. And we did have a favourite cocktail bar, which was this crazy bar. Bologna's it's a student town. Oh, okay. Well, this bar. Oh, what bar? Oh my God. Oh no. Are you Grace's mum?
Chapter 38.
Sorry.
Chapter 38, sitting in row 2. Oh, I want to give you a hug. Oh, that's going to make me cry. Yes. Oh my God.
Were they the
Australians? The Australian. Well, no, she's Grace is hooked up with Eduardo, Eddie, an Italian. Bolognese. Yeah, they met while they were working in Hospo.
They opened the bar and then they went to
And then I went to lockdown. They spent a year making this bar. It's so beautiful. Yeah, we had a great time with them. Oh, that's lovely. I'll have to send Grace a photo. Just of me. Oh, look who we are.
Oh, we'll do a photo.
Love it. Okay.
Afterwards.
All right.
That's lovely.
Well, my favourite bar. Okay, Electro Bar. My favourite bar. Favourite bar.
Lucky you gave the right answer, because that could have been a really awkward.
Isn't that funny?
No, it's great. Thank you for coming. We have another question here.
Oh, what's your name?
Diane.
Hello, Diane.
I'm going to leave in September. My second trip. I think like you said, that 3 months.
Yeah, right. Are you doing that?
On Zoom, I forgot.
3 weeks this time.
Yeah.
It's the second time.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
I guess the language is the thing for me. Like I know you, like did you have to, it was just a case of by chance learning, or you really had to industriously throw yourself into it, or like what?
All right.
So the question for Zoom was about language and
Yes, and
grasping
learning.
the Italian.
I'm a very bad student, I discovered, even though I speak Dutch. It was not helpful. People go, oh, if you speak a European language, but Dutch is, this will surprise you, it's not a romance language. Anyway, didn't help at all. The hurdle that I stumbled at was the verbs, which is that necessary? But apparently it is. Anyway, and Peter kept saying to me, you just have to learn them, you just have to memorise them, and I wouldn't. So I speak like a toddler. Food, give me. But that's fine, because, the Italians are so kind of generous. Although if you speak 2 words of Italian to them, they will reply to you in a stream, a torrent of Italian, even though the sentence might have been, I don't speak Italian. They're like, you clearly do. But you know, if you just learn, if you get on Duolingo or whatever and just learn enough your greetings and hello, and you know to say buonasera in the afternoon or the evening, and they love it. They're such generous people, and they don't have the arrogance of some other speakers of Romance languages that may have bakers. That's all I'm going to say. They're not arrogant in there. They're just very, you know, if you give them 10%, they will provide the other 90%. And it's just really having the courage to do it. The first time I had to go, make myself go into a shop and speak Italian was really hard. You kind of feel so self-conscious and stupid. But why? You know, it's like, it made me think about people who I've met in Australia, immigrants. My parents were immigrants, but mum was English speaking. Obviously, my dad had learned English, but how often we don't afford them the generosity that we should.
Yep. A question here and then here. So question here.
Kate, I'm a high school principal, state high school principal.
What's your name?
Ross.
Ross. R.I.P. Ross.
And I can attest to the fact that many parents seek my permission and or approval to do this. So
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Where did they go?
all over the planet. All over the planet. It's remarkable. My question is,
Do you give permission?
pardon?
Do you give permission? Because a lot of schools are sticky about
Any
it.
more than permission.
Yeah, right.
But my question is, because I just think it has so much potential. What do you see that your kids say they've learned from their time away? What do they talk about informally? Because I won't tell you officially. What do you see them learning? What have they come back with something that really matters for the future?
So the question from Ross was, what have your kids really learned from that experience? What have they come back with?
They've learned about us as a family. So they've learned, there's micro and macro, I guess, that they've learned, but they've learned about the world. So sometimes Jannie will go, isn't it funny, my little one who lists, isn't it funny with buttering his toast? Most of the butter ending up in the Vegemite. And he'll go, isn't it funny what we're doing here and what they're doing in Italy right now? Like the opposite. He'll just, so their extension of the world is different and their perception of it. And also there's a certain resilience in the fact that we all went through a time where it was not easy. It was not easy and we made it great. So I think once you know that you're capable of that and that is actually, transitions are always hard. They don't buckle at transitions.
That's great. That's good. And I think there was a question here. Oh, hello.
I just wanted to say, if you want to repeat the experience or anyone here in Portugal.
Portugal's being offered for us.
Portugal.
But the question really is.
What's your name?
Diana.
Hello, Diana. Hello.
The question is, when you were there, did you try to keep some distance from other Australians, or did you?
Well, that was easy because there were hardly any Australians there. There was, by coincidence, an Australian family at the school, and there was a boy at the school who was living in Bologna on his own, studying to be a pilot, whose family live in Victoria, and his dad's a plumber, and so we started having Marshall over like once a week for dinner because he was living on €1 pizzas. But we didn't mix with other expats. Really, we spent, because so much of our socialising ended up being initially through basketball, and then our mates Ricardo and Monica, we mixed with a lot of Italians. They must have found me so tedious at dinner. They're like, I don't want to sit next to her. Please, Ricardo, no, I've taken one for the team. All she does is wave her hands, and the husband, he drinks a lot.
A question down the back, right down the back, and then here. So a question over here in the fiction section.
I read your book and I did 10 years in Italy.
Oh.
And one of the things that resonated with me
fact that when you were talking about having food or eating food that was not Italian and you had to go to special places.
Oh,
for your
yes.
Asian food.
Yes.
I found that honestly the most challenging thing because I love Italian food.
Yes, not as much as the Italians do. Which is, we would say to our friends, there's no Italian restaurants here, there's just restaurants.
Yes.
There was like nothing. There was like 2 Indian restaurants in Bologna. And Peter asked the guy at the Asian supermarket about when he realised he was Vietnamese, where we could go to get Vietnamese food. And he said, Paris. It's amazing.
Go to sort of foreign dish when you were living in Italy, when you're sending the kids off to the Asian supermarket?
Oh, okay. Well, when Lewis started cooking, we made dumplings. We made dumplings a lot and fried chicken. He loves to fry. He loves to fry. And then they were really the flavours that we missed the most because we eat a lot of Vietnamese food, especially. And you just couldn't get it anywhere there. And then sometimes we get excited if you once at the Mercato, the herb market at the end of our street, they had Vietnamese mint. Don't know why. And Peter was like so excited. It was an exciting day. I bought it only for it to go off in the bottom of the fridge, like it always does. It was a taste of home.
I think it's a question at the door.
Yeah, I'm curious, what was the most unexpected challenge? Obviously, language was going to be tough. Being away from, family was going to be tough. What was the challenge that was the hardest that you didn't see coming?
Honestly, the decision to come back to Australia was the hardest, and that was on a number of reasons. For a number of reasons, it was my dad, who was unwell and had always been very unhappy. Self-interest is a great motivator, and he used everything he could think of to dissuade us from going. Okay, and it will not be good for the children. What will happen with their schooling? What will happen with it? Like, he really didn't like it. And just generally family. But yeah, that was our hardest decision. And also we were led by with the children, really, particularly Lewis, who was then going into senior, and it was too hard. And also the world was fucked at that point. Yes. Everywhere kind of was. So that really wouldn't have stopped us, but also we hadn't put things in place here. We hadn't rented our house out, and I hadn't even really officially given Hughes an end to, I'm bad at that.
I think there was one question from the front of the audience, and this will be the last question.
Last question. There's pressure on
A question.
Well, you
Okay.
didn't put your hands up to just. People with a lot of questions. This is how it works in a Q&A. People with a lot of questions put their hand up.
A quick question, a very quick question from Steve, very quick question from here.
Last night's debate, really.
Which one am I? I have held a hose.
And you have said, I actually do stuff.
I do stuff.
Yeah, good.
I do stuff.
My question's about family culture. I know in Italy, the family is really the centre of everything. And if you've got kids, I went to restaurants in Italy where people would say, I would go at 7:30 or sometimes late, 8 o'clock, and I'd be the only one in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Family would turn up at 10:30
Yes,
with
yes.
their kids from a small
Yes. Yeah.
Did your rhythm change?
Yes, it
And did
did.
have any lasting impact
Yes,
on
it
the
did.
culture? Yes.
It did. And it's really annoying because now we're back into that routine, because in Italy, nothing happens in the morning. So there's no morning yoga, there's no preschool basketball or training, or that nothing happens in the morning really. And so we got into that habit of, although we'd still eat at normal time, Well, one night Lewis and I had made a meal together, and we were sending a picture to his mate Andrea, and we were so proud of it. And Lewis sent him a picture of, and he just sent back a reply saying, "Man, it's 6:30 p.m." He was so disgusted. Anyway, so now we have to say to the children, go to bed, you're not in Italy. They get up at 5:20 this morning. I got my little one up to drop him at basketball. So everything there happened after. And sometimes when Yanni was 9, he would have a basketball game at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So different.
Okay, one question from the three of you.
Come on.
The amazing feast at the end, you prepared.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe
after
that's
the
something
Steve-O
that
party.
people need to buy the book.
Is that a
to read
question?
it.
It's not a question.
Okay.
Okay, now let's try. What's your name?
I'm Patricia.
Hello,
I
Patricia.
did read a book, and yes, I want to be in Bologna. How did your kids adjust coming back to Australia? Like, were they happy? I know they were happy to see their friends,
Yeah,
but they're so socially, they've been exposed to another world.
yes.
How they have, culture, how have they adjusted?
They were giddy with glee when we first came back. And then there was that period where the reality of life kind of caught up with them, and then they weren't quite so. The older ones, the little boys, they're not that little now, but they don't really miss a beat. They're just so connected to us still. But Lewis and Sunday, it was tricky for them when they came back because they'd both been put back to the year they were in before we went away, and so their cohort had moved on. So Lewis's grade 12 class graduated last year. So they were a bit shady at me for that. And for some reason, I always get blamed. I'm like, talk to the beardy guy talk to the beardy drunk guy. But no, it's always mum. Anyway, but now they've
like, do they say they want to go back?
I think so. And there's a lot of things that were beautiful about living in Bologna, where the kids could just roam. They could just walk around. We live in St Kilda. It's full of crackheads, which is a real problem in Australia, by the way, that you didn't see in Italy, even though it does exist, obviously, but not. We would always go through country towns, and, in Australia, they go, oh, there's nothing for the kids to do. That's why they end up on drugs. In Italy, there's nothing for the kids to do. They don't end up on drugs. It's family, culture, some spirituality, some chasm that we have, cultural chasm or spiritual chasm in us that we haven't filled. Anyway, that's another.
It's like you're in a bubble.
So unfortunately, we've run out of time, but thank you.
Oh my God.
One very quick question.
My name's Erica. Have any of your Italian friends come to visit you?
No, not yet.
No,
not yet. Giovanni is desperate to come, but he can't come now because Sarge's got another boyfriend. Spoilers. It's terrible.
Has your friend still got the trousers and the beads of the black pants?
Oh, yes. Carla. In fact, she wore them bizarrely only a few weeks ago. She wore their really great pants. I said, I hope you washed them.
Any more questions you can ask Kate on social media? Can I ask you to join me in thanking Kate Langbroek?
And can I just say, Fiona, because I have not written a book before, and the reception that my book has received has been so beautiful, and the response from people who have contacted me and from people who run bookshops who have really kind of given it space and a presence. I'm just so touched by it. I'm thrilled. And I'll never trouble you by writing another book. Okay, another round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for coming on Zoom. We really appreciate people joining us from all around Australia. Kate's book is for sale at the counter. We're going to whisk her over.